What's up, everyone? Welcome to Pat's Chat. I'm Doug Kyed, joined as always by Michael Hurley. Michael, we haven't done one of these in a while. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm just tweeting out our show so everyone knows that we're on.
Smart. That's smart.
I'm
I
doing
almost
well.
I almost did a live performance of the Pat's Chat intro music. You can see my amp set up there, my in-room amp setup, much different than my basement amp setup.
Did you
In-room
take that
setup
thing on the road?
with the cab's actually smaller than the head. Kind of a weird
I want
weird
to say
setup
this
there.
to tantalize the listeners and viewers. I got the live performance, so maybe it's
Yeah.
something we could tease. Like, if we get $3,000 in the mail one day, we'll play the song live for you. So there you go. I have important podcast business to follow up on that I left people hanging on several weeks ago. I forget the nice woman's name that was interested in my lamp. She did show up the next day.
Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I forgot what her name was
It
too.
was like a Barbara type name,
Yeah, it
like
was. Yeah.
a different generation. She came. She had a car full of garbage. So she loves picking up the free stuff on Facebook, but she did come. So shocking of all shockings, the free delivery came through.
There we go.
What's her
Yeah.
name?
Shout out
I'll check.
to Barbara or Maggie or whatever her name was that did that.
Nancy?
But
Was it
Nancy,
Nancy?
I don't think it was Nancy. I think if I heard it, I think I would know it.
Peggy? Peggy?
What? Oh, it might have been Peggy.
I
Yeah.
think it was Peggy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Peggy got the lamp.
Yeah.
Also, Doug, just to be upfront with you and everyone else, the stomach bug rolled through my house this week. Tuesday, I slept the entire day. Like, I think I slept for 20 hours. So I have some gaps in my following of everything in the world, including the Patriots. So you're the expert once again. You're double the expert this week.
Wow. All right. We really got just a guy on the podcast this week, but
Just a guy. Tell me about stuff.
he is the best dad we ever saw, apparently, according to his mug. Which you can see if you're watching on YouTube. You can't see if you're listening on a podcast app. We encourage you to do either one. But yeah, let's Patriots announced their coaching staff yesterday. So I guess we could potentially start there. I don't know about you. I don't know if you even saw this, but the most surprising aspect of the Patriots announcing their coaching staff is that Duron Mayo actually still on the staff as a strength and conditioning coach. And I will say, I think it's more surprising and more awkward for Duron Mayo to still be on staff than it was for Brian Belichick last year.
Why?
First of all, he's kind of like one of the only guys still left. Like, at least with Brian Belichick, like Mayo had been on staff. Mike Pellegrino was still around. Like they had other guys still around. This year, like, yeah, there's some, like Jeremy Springer's still around, Tom Quinn's still around. But I don't know, like maybe I don't know. It feels more awkward to me that it's your brother who is head coach rather than like your dad. It's I don't know. Do you where do you stand on this?
I guess I hadn't compared. I would just compare them as similar.
Yeah.
But how long has Duron Mayo been on staff? I'm trying to click it, and you can't even click his name. So thanks
2018.
for 20. So I mean,
he actually predated Duron Mayo on staff. He has a Super Bowl ring from his time as a coach.
Like, I saw people on Twitter when everyone was mad at Duron Mayo, like blaming Duron Mayo for various injuries or whatever, which is always a difficult game to play.
Like, who can you blame for this?
They're not strong enough.
Yeah.
But maybe he is well regarded. I don't know if maybe it's a case that Vrabel took a temperature check and Duron Mayo checked out, but more awkward, I guess. I mean, just because there was, I don't know, with Belichick, as much as he might have disagreed with it, there was like 3 years of leash of all right, fix it. All right, fix it. And then it wasn't fixed. And then it was sort of like, well, we have to do something. I know Bill Belichick probably disagrees with that, but it was a little bit more of a process. Whereas with Duron Mayo, it's like, you're the future king. We're going to suck this year. Don't worry about it. You suck. You're gone. There's a little bit more probably sour feelings. Do you think? Is that you think Gerard has more sour grapes than Bill?
I think it could. Like, I think there's the potential for that. I mean, like being fired after 1 year, you can't feel great about it. At least with Bill, like you knew that there would be something on the horizon for him. With Gerard,
Sure.
know what his future holds at this point. Like yeah, and like with Gerard, I think for him, he could potentially be like, "Hey, this really wasn't fair." Like it was
Yeah.
1 year, you gave me 1 year, the roster was bad, blah 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 blah, and you fired me for Mike Vrabel. With Bill, like you said, like he was here for 25 years, like it was going to end at some point anyway. Was it perfect the way it ended? Was it completely ideal? Like no, but I don't know. And maybe Bill holds more potential for having sour grapes, but I don't know.
Mm.
It just really does feel a little bit more awkward. I don't know.
Bill is a sour grapes guy. Not sure if you're aware. So he's
Yeah.
pretty good at holding a grudge. But yeah, I guess it's just similar. It's surprising. But I guess it speaks to, I don't know, Vrabel not making a change just for the sake of change. But
Right.
it certainly sets up for, like, I don't know. I text my brother every day,
Right.
If I'm working at the place that in his mind screwed him over, it's going to be tough to have normal, comfortable conversations.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it is a tough business where, like, you're not guaranteed to find a new job somewhere. Like, and he
Right.
is the strength and conditioning coach. He's not like an assistant here. Maybe he would have to move down to an assistant role somewhere else. So
So
if
thinking
he's
about
under
it more,
contract and you want to keep him, then he kind of has to stick around.
I'm just playing it out of my, like, I would probably, is Duran older or younger?
I
I
think
should
he's
probably know that.
older.
He looks older, but that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, he's older.
Gerard,
Ron Mayo is
Gerard,
36.
as we know, Gerard is a great age. Wait,
It's true.
who's 36?
Duran is 36. Gerard is
So he's
38.
younger. Oh, so
Yes,
Gerard,
younger.
yeah. So I, in that scenario, would be texting my brother like, "Hey, sucks to suck. Yeah, just heading to work at the New England Patriots for another day. What are you doing today?" Like that's what I would be doing.
Yeah,
But I don't know if Duran has the Massachusetts a-hole gene.
true.
He's been here long enough. Maybe he does.
Maybe. So my coworker, Andrew Callahan, wrote that there's 7 holdovers from last season's staff, but one of us can't count because I'm only counting 6 holdovers from last year's staff.
Okay.
But it is the holdovers are Jeremy Springer, Tom Quinn, as I mentioned. So Jeremy Springer, special teams coordinator, Tom Quinn, assistant special teams coach. You also got offensive line coach Robert Kugler, defensive assistant Vinny DePalma, and strength and conditioning coaches Deron Mayo and Brian McDonough, and Ben McAdoo is sticking on staff where he will now coach defense. So that is 7.
Yeah.
Okay. He didn't mention Tom Quinn in his intro, so that's why I didn't count him. But
What about
so
Ben McAdoo on defense? What's that all about?
I think it's kind of similar to what like Vrabel did last year on the Browns, where they put him on offense, just kind of
Okay.
give a different perspective. But so I, I could have, I was kind of on board with them not retaining Brian Belichick and Mike Pellegrino if it meant completely turning the staff over. But now, like, if you're going to keep 7 guys around, it feels a little odd to get rid of quality defensive backs coaches seemingly just for the hell of it.
Hmm.
Because I did see the appeal of being like, all right, nothing from last year is going to carry over. We're not bringing anyone back. This is going to be completely new staff. No one's going to be comfortable. Like everything's new. But I don't know, to keep like a few guys around, it is what it is. But yeah,
Did you get a sense, because I've heard Phil Perry say on the radio a few times that he assumed that a lot of those guys' contracts ran concurrently with Bill's, which ended
yeah.
after the season. So did you get a sense that it was the team being not interested, that it was Pellegrino, for instance, not being interested, or if it was mutual, or where might that have stood?
I got more of a sense that it was the team not being interested. I think like
That's
Brian Belichick and Mike Pellegrino will land on their feet and everything. But Yeah, I do also get the sense that some of those guys' contracts ran concurrent with Bill Belichick. So it's not like it was like a firing necessarily.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
No,
contracts
but
go
I
out.
mean,
Yeah.
it
And
would
I think
make
it
more
is easier to retain a guy if his contract is still active.
sure. It would make more sense to me if maybe it was the other way around and Pellegrino was like, you know what, I'm ready for something new. I'm ready for somewhere new. But
Right.
if it was the other way around, it's kind of like, well, hope you're right. That's what it comes down to. Because you
Right.
had a good coach.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that it's interesting. But overall, obviously we have talked about the staff quite a bit. It's an experienced staff. It's looks on paper a lot better than last year's staff. I know that there's some concerns, at least I've seen from fans, about Doug Marrone. His offensive lines have not been especially great over the last few years that he's been in that role, but he's a guy who knows what he's doing. And then also, you got some pushback from fans on the Todd Downing hire. Todd Downing has never coached wide receivers. He's been a quarterback's coach. He's been a tight ends coach. He's been an offensive coordinator. He's been a passing game coordinator, but he's never been a wide receivers coach. I perhaps there's some concern over that, especially since like the Patriots have had a lack of experience at wide receivers coaches over the last few years, going from Troy Brown to Ross Douglas to Tyler Hughes. But Todd Downing's been a pretty good position coach over the years. Like in 2015 and 2016, he actually did a really good job with Derek Carr as his quarterbacks coach. He was a tight ends coach with the Vikings, where he had Kyle Rudolph, tight ends coach with the Titans, where he had Johnny Smith. So, like, he did a good enough job in these position coaching roles to actually get ascended up to offensive coordinator. So I think that that's the silver lining. Like that's the optimistic view that he's done all this stuff before. He's an experienced guy, and wide receivers coaching shouldn't be out of his realm of expertise.
Would you say? And now when they hired him, I was like, Todd Downing. Oh, the DUI a couple of years ago. I
Right.
feel like that probably derailed that ascent that you spoke about.
Right.
So this may be a step
And
back
like
toward redemption.
I will say, and like people in Tennessee have tweeted this out, like probably not the greatest offensive play caller. Like probably much better in the role of a position coach or one of the Kevin Stefanski-esque OCs who's offensive coordinator and title, but doesn't actually call plays. Like, because Downing was the OC, I think, with the Raiders 1 year, and then was the OC with the Titans for 2 years. First year in Tennessee wasn't that bad. Second year in Tennessee, even the DUI notwithstanding, like was not doing a great job as the offensive play caller. And I think he was also calling plays with the Jets last season as well, which we all know how that went. So definitely at this point in his career, he's only 40, better as a position coach than he is as a coordinator.
He's 44. I had
44.
his Wikipedia page up. He is the wrong age, but that's fine. We will allow for it. Yeah, again, you're the expert. So what you say stands as the Pats chat stance on this one. I want to know, did we already do that? We might have done this at another position. Because the Patriots need help at wide receiver and in the wide receiver room all around. What's a great wide receiver coach out there? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, ideally, maybe you'd think on someone that played in the league or whatever, like.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always translate.
No, it doesn't always translate. Like Troy Brown obviously didn't translate.
Yeah.
So no, it's a good question
thing to pinpoint, because I think of all the years when the Patriots won Super Bowls with Troy Brown, David Givens, David Patton.
Right.
I can't remember who their wide receivers coach was.
It was Nick Caserio in 2007. I think you actually looked this up, wasn't it? Brian Daboll?
He might have been in 2004.
Yeah.
But the first couple Super Bowls, like it's not to say it's irrelevant,
right?
But it's also, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'd love to talk to someone that's maybe played for 5 different wide receivers coaches, because you hear, I don't know, Welker's been around in the league for a while. You heard his name thrown around. I don't know. I'm just curious. That's all.
Ivan Fears in 2001. So
great
then
job.
He obviously made a much bigger name for himself as a running backs coach from 2002 to 2021. checking to see who it was in 2002. It was Brian Dable.
Oh, wow.
So they went from Ivan
Who must
Fears to
have
Brian
he must have
Dable.
he must have been like 24 years old
Yeah, he must have been really young.
in 2002.
In 2002. Yeah, because he's not that old at this point. And he was born in 1975, so he was what, 27 in 2002?
Okay.
Some quick math. And
Older
he
than I
held that
thought.
job until 2006, at which point Nick Caserio coached wide receivers in 2007. And then I would assume that Chad O'Shea probably took over sometime after that.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, there's elements to it
yeah.
where I don't know. Now, I don't want to be disrespectful to Nick Caserio. I think he's a really good personnel guy. I think he mastered Bill Belichick's voice over the years.
Mhm.
I don't think Nick Caserio was like, all right, Randy Moss, when you run this route, I need you to break it 12 back to 10. I need you to be quicker when you snap that head around. I think Randy Moss would have been like, who's talking to me right now? So there's different levels of need of receiving coaching.
Bill O'Brien actually was the Patriots wide receivers coach in 2008, which I had forgotten. And then Chad O'Shea took over in 2009 when Bill O'Brien moved up to quarterbacks coach. So they do have a nice little history of wide receivers coaches throughout the years. But I will say that I think it was at the Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl. Wes Welker was on the 49ers staff at that point. And I actually asked him at that Super Bowl, like, what it was like being coached by Nick Caserio. He was like, oh my God, the guy was always on my ass. He was like, you have to stop your route at this like precise yard marker, comeback. So like he was at least probably wasn't doing it to Randy Moss, but he certainly was doing it to Wes Welker, especially early in his tenure as a Patriots.
I can see that. Sort of like an analytical coach, and I can see his delivery being exactly like Bill.
Yeah.
So I don't have a hard time seeing that. Yeah, with the Randy stuff, I'm sure it was.
With Randy, it's like, yeah, go deep.
Literally, you could see Brady be like,
yeah.
And then Randy would do it. So it was a different time. But yeah, I guess we'll see. It's not like we'll get results in a month of the season or anything. We're gonna need a season to see the whole picture.
I actually do think, and like obviously this is an interesting topic, but Patriots wide receivers in general are an interesting topic, and we'll get into some of the trade candidates. We'll get into it right now.
Get the guitar out.
You'd have had the guitar to go. Pew! Cooper Kupp, he announced that the Rams are trading him essentially. Cooper Kupp is due $20 million. I would not trade for Cooper Kupp for $20 million. I think it was Ian Rappaport said that the Rams could pay him a bonus early, which would lower his salary down to $12.5 million. That's better, but still $12.5 million. I'd probably only be willing to ship away like a fifth at most, maybe like a 6th round pick for Cooper Kupp.
Really?
He's getting up there in age, and he's also just kind of constantly hurt at this point. Over the last 3 years, he's only averaged like 700 something yards per season. I would do it just because like you got to spend your $130 million somehow, but I don't hate the idea of waiting for them to release him because I think that might be what happens here.
I mean, I was under the impression, and again, I've been knocked out for half the week. I was under the impression that he could fetch them like a late second or something like that.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Just because of the cost. And I imagine Kupp's going to be looking for a contract.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if he can justify it. Because, like...
you think he might have, like, a prove-it year in him?
Maybe. Like, so he hasn't played more than 12 games since 2021. He's maxed out at 812 yards since 2021. And Cooper Kupp, good player, obviously. He's going to be 32 years old this season, if he's not already. He's going to be 32 in June. He has 2,000-yard seasons in his career. Like, and one of those was almost 2,000 yards. So clearly, like, that matters. But that was also, once the season starts, 4 years ago.
Same thing with his monster playoffs, which was 2021.
Right. And last year, he didn't have his last 100-yard game was in November. He was held catchless in a game against the 49ers in December. He had 61 yards in his final game of the season, but before that, it was 0, 24, 29, 29. Like there was a span of time where he had 5 catches in a 4-game span.
Plus, as Gerard Mayo instructed us, we have to delete the 69-yard touchdown he scored in New England.
True. That is true. Then like
didn't happen.
And he had 106 yards in that game, but yeah, 69 of them came on one play, which clearly matters.
I don't know. I hear you that it's a risky investment, but they have
Yeah.
so much cap space and he has such a high ceiling that if you were to get him in a year where he didn't have contract security, that's a good setup.
It is. And like he would be the
32.
Patriots' best wide receiver. Like if he got added tomorrow, he would be the number one on the
He's
team.
not elderly. Like he's 32.
Right. He's not like us. He's not 38.
I wouldn't sign him to a 3-year extension. I would trade if you could get him. See, I might be willing to part with the 3rd-round pick for a player of that caliber, even just for how desperate they are and how much the need is and how much they've whiffed at the position in the draft over the past several years through several regimes now. I just feel like I know he's not a sure thing on the injury front, but everything else makes him a sure thing that you need guys like that to show everyone else in that room how to play in the NFL and how to succeed. That I think he'd be worth. You say a 5th. I wouldn't go. What do they have? The 34th pick. I wouldn't go for the 2nd rounder, but one of their 3rds because they have 2. Like them, if you could turn Matthew Judon into a year of Cooper Kupp,
it's not the worst thing. Yeah.
I would do that in a heartbeat. And the money, I'm going to make a fart noise about because they have so much room that if it's for 1 year. This is the sound effect episode. Wait till the guitar comes out. I'll get my drums. We'll do some rim shots. I'd jump at that. If it was that, I think a 3rd is low for him, even though it's everything you say is valid.
Yeah.
I think the desperation, because I'm sure we're going to get into T Higgins. I just think T Higgins is going to be harder to get.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is that like if you can trade for Cooper Kupp, then it's a sure thing that you have Cooper Kupp. Clearly, guys who look like Cooper Kupp have had a lot of success in Josh McDaniels' offense.
White people?
Yes, white people. He is primarily a slot receiver at this point, does have some versatility to play outside. It's kind of been like a 66-33 split over the last few years.
Can I say this, though? Because like you mentioned his numbers, and sometimes he'll have a game with like 3 for 24, but you'll be watching and it'll be like a Monday night game and he's like doubled all night, but he'll come up with a catch on like 3rd and 9 that is like out of this world ridiculous, where Stafford just kind of throws it back shoulder on like one of those sort of slot fades to nowhere, and it just works. Like he is, if he were to get in a room with or on the field with Drake May, I feel like very positive things could come of it, even if the numbers don't show it. He'd probably get tripled if he was in this offense, but the point stands.
No, I think like I personally would probably max out at a 5th, maybe a 4th. Because I will say that like when you have to announce that you're trying to trade someone, probably means that the value is not that high. It's been, I don't know, time moves in odd ways in January and February. So I have no idea when it was even announced that it could have been 2 weeks ago. It could have been Tuesday for all I know.
I think it
might have been Monday.
I was still conscious.
Like that a deal hasn't been agreed to at this point maybe shows that the value. So I think that those are the factors that I'm considering here. But I do like the idea one way or the other of Cooper Kupp being in this offense. I also don't think that you can stop there, obviously. I would still try to go after T. Higgins. I would still try to trade for DK Metcalf. I would still see what's going on with Deebo Samuel or any of these guys, or, even some of the other free agents, Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, whoever you want to throw out there, because I do think that like there's a possibility that Mike Vrabel and Todd Downing and Josh McDaniels look at this wide receiver core and they're like, I don't really like any of these guys, And like, that's not to say that there's going to be complete turnover. And I don't even want people to be like, oh, so-and-so could get cut, because I straight up don't know. But there's really very little ties to the current wide receiver coach on the staff. And even in the front office, like Polk and Baker were drafted by Elliott Wolf, but Demario Douglas and Kayshon Boutte are carryovers from Bill Belichick. Kendrick Bourne's the only one that, like, Josh McDaniels worked with him, but that was 4 years ago now. He's coming off a torn ACL, only played half of last season, didn't completely look like himself until the end of the year. So, like, this could be a situation where, like, everyone on the roster at wide receiver is fighting for a job this training camp. And, like, if they bring in, let's say, like 2, 3, 4 guys, whatever it is, like, there's a lot of big names on the Patriots current roster who might be fighting for roster spots.
Yeah, and they need, and I'm kind of repeating myself, but they need an alpha in the receiver room just to set everyone in a slot. Because last year, I think their biggest problem was, like, who's the number one? Is it Demario Douglas? Is it Kendrick Bourne when he got back? Is it the rookie? There was no pecking order to how it, and that's kind of important for everyone to have a role and be able to fill it. It's just hard to sort of exist in this vacuous void and just sort of try to succeed. So whether it's Kupp, whether it's Higgins, whether it's Metcalf, whether it's somebody else, they do need a number one. And I don't think you want that to be a rookie from the draft.
Right. Yeah, I don't love the idea of Ted McMillan at number 4 overall. That seems like it's probably a little bit of a reach. Travis Hunter, if he's there, I don't know if he's a cornerback. I don't know if he's a wide receiver. So I'm kind of with you on that one. And, like, yeah, even just, like, position wise, I know that some people might say, like, okay, Cooper Kupp, mostly a slot receiver. Demario Douglas was your leading receiver last year. Do they really need to fill in from the slot? But at this point, I'm just kind of like, you need good guys. And anyone on the roster currently at wide receiver can be pushed down the pecking order for a better player. Like, you don't need to worry about that.
Maybe they can get Ladd McConkey. Is he available via trade?
I don't know if the Chargers are open to trading Ladd McConkey.
Do you think the Patriots could trade down 4 spots for McConkey this year and just slide down a little?
Chargers might take the 4th overall pick or maybe the 8th overall pick for Ladd McConkey, but I don't think you're getting a good value for Ladd McConkey at this point. But yeah, overall, like, yeah, you need much better players there. I think if you start with Cooper Kupp, that's a good starting point. You still need to add guys at the position. But yeah, I mean, like, even position-wise last year for the Patriots, you're talking about, like, this vacuous void. Like, Kayshon Boutte should probably not be an X wide receiver. He's like 5'11", 200 pounds. Usually you want your X's to be like 6'3", 6'4", whatever, T. Higgins sized. But they kind of had to force Kayshon Boutte into that X receiver role because he was a guy who, like, had done it before, had some of the skills to do it. But ideally, you do not want him to be playing that position. But they just basically literally had no one else to do it. So they're like, oh, all right, Kayshon Boutte go out there. And actually wound up having a pretty good season for the Patriots last year. He was number 2 in receiving yards among wide receivers, but not an ideal situation there.
And it's not an insult to him, but he would be a great 3rd or 4th receiver on your team. That 100%. Would be a good slot for him to come up with 3 to 4 big catches a game. Right. You know what I mean? And by big catches, I mean 8 to 20 yards. You know, like, that's, but to lean on him as sort of a de facto number 1 at times is just not great roster building. So it's similar to, it reminds me of, like, a decade ago before the Celtics got good, when Jay Crowder was, like, a fan favorite. And then he got mad because the fans cheered Gordon Hayward during pregame introductions. But he was like, it's because Celtics fans knew, like, he'd be a great 6th man on a good team. Yes. This team is not good, so he's like the star. And it's like, everyone needs to fit a certain way.
It's a good analogy.
I think, not really, but I just said it.
No, because all these wide receivers would be, like, good number 3s or 4s. They'd be good, like, proverbial 6 men or whatever.
Right. Like, imagine if you had an elite number 1. I think even Pop Douglas has a chance to be a number 2, but probably isn't there yet. But let's say he's there. And then, like, Bourne and Boutte, it makes that much of a difference to get a clear-cut number 1. You'd be better off with 2 of them, but I think with 1 of them, you can at least start building something.
And in an ideal world, let's say, like throw out T. Higgins as your X, Cooper Kupp is your slot/Z, and then Douglas, Boutte, Polk, Baker, Bourne fight it out for that number 3 role. you can do a lot worse than really any of those guys. Maybe, I mean, you
Polk
might
and
not
Baker,
be,
who knows?
like, yeah, Polk and Baker, maybe you couldn't do worse. But yeah, with the other three guys, they've at least proven that they can be starting wide receivers, just not ideally all fighting for the number one role, instead fighting for that number three role. And I think what the Patriots do at tight end obviously plays in this as well. Like if they bring back Austin Hooper, then you don't need to rely on your third wide receiver quite as heavily. People are asking me in my mailbag if I would consider trading for Kyle Pitts, which that's one where he's set to make $10 million next year.
Yeah, wasn't he a 5th overall pick?
He was 4th overall. And like he had 1,000-yard season his first year. Over the last 3 years, he's averaging like 500 something yards per season. Like, I don't know if I want to pay that guy $10 million and give up draft capital for him.
I know that Arthur Smith got blamed for misusing him and stuff, but at a certain point, if a player hasn't risen to that level, you can't. That's where I will factor the money in, Doug, because it just seems like he's a great disappointment in the NFL after being like the most sure thing tight end pick in a million years.
I know. And like, it's surprising that it hasn't worked out, but you're also like, I mean, if you acquire Kyle Pitts, bring him to a new system, bring him to a new like environment, whatever, like there's a non-zero chance that he becomes what Mike Gesicki was with the Patriots, where like he finishes the season with like 200 something yards because the team can't figure out how to use him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a different tight end. So
yeah, he's undersized.
Doesn't strike me as a McDaniels tight end.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hunter Henry would be the starter still. He's like a Hernandez body type.
Yeah. Are you going to pay $10 million for a number 2 tight end though?
Like yeah, not ideally. And our guy Murph just said, well, you never take a tight end before the 3rd round. Usually, unless the guy's Brock Bowers, that is true.
Or Gronkowski.
But this is
pretty much true.
It's also a pretty solid year to draft a tight end. So we'll see what they wind up doing.
The
Tyler Warren, he's gonna be like 25 though.
I know, I saw that. I think he is 25.
There's a quarterback in this year's draft.
Oh yeah, he's 27, isn't he?
Tyler Shaw. Our guy Mike Giardi was tweeting about him. And like some other people, Field Yates was tweeting about him, Dane Brugler. They're like, he could be the 3rd quarterback in this draft, which sure, 100%. They know better than I do. He's gonna be 26 in September. Tyler Shaw, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He was in the same recruiting class as Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence is like
he's entering his 5th year.
Tyler Shaw was a freshman at Oregon the same year that Javon Holland was a freshman at Oregon. Javon Holland is going to be a free agent this year, which means that he has like paid his dues, played 4 years in the NFL, and is now going to be a free agent. And he's also younger than Tyler Shaw, whatever, however you want to pronounce his name. So I don't want to poop on Tyler Shaw's parade or the number 3 quarterback in this draft's parade. Could wind up being a great guy, great pick. Michael Penix, he was older. Bo Nix, he was older. This does reach a level of like, he was a literal adult playing against almost children last year in college.
Right.
You know?
I was the game I played during the college football playoff was Google the age of every quarterback. And you're like, yep, Drake May's younger than him. Drake May's younger than him. Drake May's younger than him. And it's like, it does help put in context what some of these guys do. And even the rookie year of Bo Nix made more sense because he had so much more playing experience that he was able to function and operate Sean Payton's system better. And I'll be interested to see if he can elevate it. I have my doubts, but that's why you see a rookie look so much more comfortable in his first year in the NFL when they've played 6 years of college ball. I don't know how much of that is just the current state of college football, how much COVID screwed with it. I feel like we're now getting past the COVID window though. Yeah. So it's kind of, I guess these kids might have gone to school when COVID started. Or they might have been like freshmen or sophomores. It's just
Tyler Shaw was a junior in 2020.
Yeah,
he went he played 7 years of college football.
we need to put a stop to it. I don't know. Donald Trump is signing executive orders every day. Can we get one? Like, you get 4 years of college football, and when you're 24, you're done. Same thing with basketball. There's a player, I forget where. There's a college basketball player who's like 27. And it's like Jason Tatum's 26.
For years and years and years, 5 years was like the limit. You got a redshirt season and you got to play 4 years. It made sense. Somewhere along the line,
you could get a medical red shirt, so maybe.
So then that's how you get the 6th, which, like, sure, that seems fair. I don't know how you get to 7. It's COVID plus red shirt plus medical red shirt plus, like, I don't know, Van Wilder situation at that point.
I was going to say, they made a documentary about it called Van Wilder.
It's a Tommy boy. A lot of people go to college for 7 years.
Yeah, they're called quarterbacks.
Yeah, they're called quarterbacks. I actually watched Tommy Boy the other day. That movie holds up.
Okay.
This one might get me killed on the internet, in the comment section, wherever else. I put on Anchorman the other night. That movie was not funny. And really? I used to think that was like the funniest movie in the world. Maybe I wasn't in the Anchorman mood at the moment. And maybe I've just heard those jokes 2,700 times at this point in my life. So it's like nothing's new. But I was like astounded by it.
I theorized, Doug, that when that movie hit in 0304, that particular brand of comedy had not really been mainstream, like the dry, ridiculous, understated comedy, whereas like Paul Rudd wasn't Paul Rudd at the time. Like, you know, there was no Ant-Man before Anchorman. You know what I mean? Like, there was that. You're probably
it kind of created it. Yeah.
It sort of changed comedic pop culture.
Right.
That now it just seems probably old and stale, where at the time it was completely out of nowhere.
No, 100%. And I loved that movie when it came out.
I think, to your point, this helps bolster your stance, your hot take that Anchorman sucks. I saw Anchorman 2 once, and I've never heard anyone say anything about Anchorman 2. So I do think that was sort of like a lightning in a bottle situation, and I can see it having less of an impact these days. I don't know. I could watch to test your theory, but I might not now because I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, it might be best not to ruin it. But Tommy Boy held up. Hot Rod. Have you seen Hot Rod?
Oh yeah,
Hot Rod holds up. Like I was reading something that someone wrote on Reddit about Hot Rod, just like as I was watching the movie, and someone was like, only about 30% of the jokes hit, but like they hit pretty hard. I was like, you're a liar, because 100% of the jokes hit, and that movie is still absolutely hilarious. So I still do like movies from the past. Anchorman just was not hitting the night that I put it on.
I would say one of my most repeated movie lines is Will Arnett in the car just going, "Babe, babe,
wait, babe, wait." Yeah,
that's a good one.
Movie's still great. And Olivia kind of liked it too. She was mostly like playing Roblox at the time, but at the end of the movie, she went, "That was funny." So it was a win.
Not bad. I mean, it's a story everyone can get behind, having to wrestle your stepdad out of the basement or whatever it was. I had my kids watch Napoleon Dynamite.
Oh, wow.
They got a kick out of it. I knew Penny would love it because it's just sort of her vibe. But it was a hit. And then she had a friend over. She's like, "Can we watch Napoleon Dynamite?" I'm like, let's let their parents decide. Not that it's... But have I talked about that on the podcast?
I don't think so.
This is deep. This is like a real, like, deep realization I had, is because, like, when you watch it when you're like 17, 18, that's what age everyone is when Napoleon Dynamite came out in 2003.
100%.
Like, you know, Uncle Rico is a creep and a weirdo.
Yeah.
But then you watch it as an adult, you're like, oh, he's a predator. Like, this isn't funny. He is like talking to teenage girls about like enhancing their cup size in his van, and you're like,
not great.
That's not funny.
No.
Like, this is, and it was just like, it shows you how naive you are as a teen and how you are susceptible to believing, you know, an adult.
Yeah.
I had a real look in the mirror moment about how naive I was. Not that I was 17, like, oh, Uncle Rico. But then at the end of the movie, when he's throwing the football and some lady shows up, you're like, why does he get a happy ending in this movie? He's a scumbag. Like, he belongs in prison. He doesn't deserve a girlfriend and happiness.
Yeah.
That's
real.
That's a Pat's chat stance. Uncle Rico is a dirtbag.
Yep, that's one that people could probably get behind. My Anchorman stance, I think, will be a little bit more controversial, but
it's thought provoking. I am intrigued by your take because I haven't seen that movie in at least 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think there is an element too where like Steve Carell wasn't Steve Carell, Paul Rudd wasn't Paul Rudd. So now you're just so used to these people being part of the overall comedic zeitgeist that it doesn't.
Right.
It's not as shocking or funny or whatever.
Well, I can't think of the other guy's name. David, the guy
who didn't get as big. Yeah, he was in The Office also.
Yeah.
Yeah,
played a dirtbag in The Office as well. I want to take a stance on that.
One of the top dirtbag character actors of our time.
He's good at it.
He is.
Yeah.
It's a little one note, but he's good at that one note. He can hit that one note.
That's a tough note to have.
It's a tough note to hit too. Yeah, where were we before I started this Anchorman discussion?
That is a good question. I'm going to get his name though. We need to put a cap on that. Yeah. David Koechner.
Yeah, Koechner. What do you think about Myles Garrett? Would you trade the 4th overall pick for Myles Garrett?
No. He had a serious injury this year.
It feels so stupid to say that, but I am also kind of on board with like, I don't know, no.
And it's like, it's not a distaste of talent, which I think I made clear earlier. It's just the point is to get that player as a rookie.
Yeah.
The point is to get him for 5 years. The point is to draft Abdul Carter if he's there. If you have an elite pass rusher potential, it's to not pay a high pick and top dollar. Like both is not what you're looking for unless you're a team on the cusp, like Baltimore or I don't know, or even if you're a team like a fringe playoff team like Denver or somewhere that you can envision a scenario where he's going to help you more than that draft pick is going to help you for the next couple of years. The Patriots are so buried that to spend that high draft, like you should spend that high draft pick on someone with a Myles Garrett potential talent that you're going to pay a rookie contract for 5 years instead of using that pick and the money for the player.
It's tough. Like once you're picking that high, when you have a top 5 pick, like acquiring players who are worth 1st round picks becomes difficult. Like sure, you could trade a future first or something like that, but that future first might still be a top 5 pick. And I think Myles Garrett makes way more sense, obviously, for a team that's going to be competing right away, that's picking later, that's ready to win a Super Bowl. He's 29. I think he'll probably still be a good player until he's 30, 31, 32, whatever it is. But like at the same time, a lot of those pass rushers, a lot of those elite pass rushers, once they reach a certain age, start signing like 1-year deals, kind of bounce around the league for a little bit. So you might be getting that guy 2 or 3 years earlier than that, but still like, I don't know. You wouldn't want to give up the 4th overall pick for it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I have bad news, and it's that my hum came back, so I'm trying to limit the hum.
I don't think I hear it.
Okay, good. But anyways, there's those teams that can envision that piece being the difference between 8 wins and 10 wins.
Yeah.
Not the difference between 4 wins and 10 wins.
Right.
And there's no player that could do that outside of Jake Bailey. He was good for a couple wins that year, but there's not many players that can truly win you games like that.
Truly elevate you to that level. Someone else asked me if there was any trade candidates on the Patriots, and like I was going through the roster. It's tough sledding out there. Like the only 2 that you could really put out there that you would even want to give up, and their names were floated at the trade deadline last year, would be like Godshaw and Duggar. But like, what are you going to get back for them? You're going to wind up eating more dead cap than you're going to gain in cap space. And like, you're kind of at a point where you want as many NFL players on your roster as possible. So I don't think there's a lot of guys that the Patriots could trade at this point.
What about David Andrews?
I don't think anyone's going to want him, unfortunately.
Why? People get hurt.
Coming off a major injury. Like when you hear him talk, it still sounds like he's kind of like
out.
Yeah, well, not half out, but I think he's like, yeah, I'm hoping I can play. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want to, like, that's not a quote verbatim. I don't want to misquote or like misinterpret what he's saying, but like,
he's not counting any eggs.
Whenever he speaks, it's not as if he's like, yes, I will 1000% be able to play and be like my old self. And I think he holds more value for the Patriots than he would for anyone else.
What about Onwenu? Like, what if there's a team out there that wholly abides by PFF rankings, and they're like, Mike Onwenu is the greatest player in the history of mankind. I will give up a third for him.
I don't think I would want to trade him for a third because, like, there's no guarantee you can get Michael Onwenu back with a third-round pick, and you need as many bodies as possible. Like,
I
he's
know
the
that I'm
only
being
guaranteed body.
I'm being dumb by picking. I'm just picking two of
No,
the
I
only good
know.
players on the roster.
I
And
just don't
seeing
think
if
that you would want like
what
Keon
if it
White.
was what if it was like a third and a sixth?
I don't think so. I think I want Michael Onwenu. I think I want a guaranteed player who can block defenders on your offensive line.
What
If
were you saying
it was a
about
first or second, then sure, but like I don't think so. I don't think there's anyone out there who's probably still bought in on Cole Strange. I mentioned Keon White, like same time, I don't know if you want to trade Keon White. It's
I think there's no player that fits the concept of everything Mike Vrabel's about more than Keon White.
right.
That
I
I
also
feel
don't
like,
think you could probably get more than like a third or a fourth for Keon White.
yeah, and I just think he has shown enough potential to say let's let him learn in this system and see what he can become, because he looked a little lost last year,
Right.
which I don't put on him. He liked being coached by Bill Belichick. He liked being coached hard. He is an old school player. Like I wouldn't trade him for $1 million. Well, unless it was I could use $1 million.
I was going to say for yourself or for the Patriots.
I
the
would
Patriots,
trade him
that
for
would be a bad deal for them to be like, we're going to trade Keon White for $1 million. Austin Powers, wonder if that movie holds up.
I bet in parts because it was ridiculous at the time. But yeah, $1 million for the Patriots is like 7 minutes of Bud Light sales. So I would not.
Well, maybe during the peak era of the Patriots. I don't know if they were garnering $100 million. If they were garnering
That's
$1
another
million.
thing I observed when I went to Old Week 18.
Lots of Bud Lights.
Beer is sold and purchased at the stadium. I partook. I'll be honest, because what else was I doing?
I mean,
yeah, they actually have really good beer there. It's like they have their standards, but then they have these little craft beer like in cuts in the wall with some really good stuff, and it's a few extra bucks. But at that point, what's the difference?
Right?
What's 11 to 14?
If you're already paying out your nose, then
exactly.
What's the difference if you're going to be able to upgrade a little bit there? So,
one thing I should say, because I bought those tickets from like Ticketmaster resale for $50. I've gotten a lot of emails from the Patriots. I had to unsubscribe, like my personal email, and it was like, "Hey, join the season ticket waiting list." And I was like, "Guys, I went to one game when you were 3-14, 3-13, and the number one pick was at stake, and I was bored on a Sunday. Like, you've gotten the wrong idea about me." But you got to do what you got to do. I guess
they're coming in a little hot.
They're just like, this dude loves ball. This guy loves ball. Let's harass him until he buys season tickets.
I'll bet season ticket wait list is probably a little bit shorter than it was, let's say, 10 years ago.
Probably thinning out. But if every game is like that, where you can drive in at like 11 with no traffic and you can leave right after the game with no traffic, I might be in.
Wow. They're going to get you. They're going to get you. And and also if they're like $30, but yeah.
I could do that. Possibly. Probably not.
All right. Well, I don't know if there's that much else going on. What do you think about the Super Bowl? The Super Bowl is coming up.
I wore my hat. I'm a big Super Bowl fan. Your hat's better than mine. For one, because of the style. For two, because your daughter's name is on it. So I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah. Super Bowl live.
That was Miami. This was Tampa. Nobody went to this one. It had like 10,000 people there. So they had a lot of merchandise on NFL Shop for like 88% off. So I believe I paid like $5 for this hat.
Yeah.
Doug, I'd like to believe the Chiefs are going to lose one of these games at some point this year.
Yeah.
I'd like to believe that. I've just seen 20 games this year, and they tend to win them. They tend to win the games.
Yeah.
I can see. All right, let's lay out the scenario, I guess, because we all probably assume the Chiefs are going to win, right?
I assume so.
So the scenario that the Eagles win is that you're going to need 1 or 2 turnovers from the Chiefs.
Yeah.
which I could see Mahomes throwing a pick. He's thrown
done that
interceptions
before.
The field will not be slippery. We won't be interviewing the Sod Father this year, unfortunately. Right. The legend of all legends. Did you ever listen to his interview on Dan Le Batard's show?
No.
It was, I saw it was back in my aggregation days, 2 years ago, that I saw a quote from him and I wanted to get it right. I just saw a tweet where it's like the Sod Father said this. Anyone that doesn't know the Sod Father, he was like a 92-year-old guy who had done the field for every Super Bowl. He said they ignored his warnings a couple years ago when the Eagles played the Chiefs. And that's why the Eagles fell over a lot, they said. But I listened and he was on Le Batard and he just went and like he either couldn't hear or chose not to hear. And they were like, and he just went for like 30 minutes, F-bombs. It was the most incredible offshoot of the Super Bowl I ever heard. So let's say there's maybe a strip sack, an interception, or whatever. Maybe Juju Smith-Schuster fumbles. He's due. There's that. Saquon's going to have at least one home run.
Yep.
He breaks it for 60-plus yards and a touchdown. And if we're being real, like the receiving core is legit. You can't cover both of their top receivers. Like there's a chance AJ Brown goes off. There's a chance Devontae Smith. I kind of like his chances. He's always scared me in the NFL with his little skinny legs, but dude gets open. So Hurts concerns me. He doesn't inspire me, I would say. I don't know about you. He's kind of good enough. When he runs, it's like oddly effective, but he looks like he's in slow motion.
Yeah, he's not like a 4-4 guy, right?
No, but like he ran for a touchdown last game, and it was like, how did nobody catch him? I don't know. Maybe it's my eyes. Maybe he just looks bigger or slower. But
that tush push, that works real well.
The tush push does. It's almost like what I'm getting at, Doug. Kind of everything has to go right for the Eagles, and I would say they have to be up by 10 with 5 minutes left for me to think they're going to win.
Even that's a little scary with Patrick Mahomes, but yeah, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, everything has to bounce their way. Hurts has to play out of his mind. Every tush push has to go the Eagles' way. I know the tush push has been discussed ad nauseum at this point, but is it just Hurts' strength that makes it work? Because
Kelsey's gone, so that was whatever. And they have screwed it up a million more times this year without Kelsey.
Yeah.
So that was a big factor. We know what actually bugs me.
I think the fact that Jalen Hurts can squat like 600 pounds probably plays a big factor.
Which seems like a myth. I mean, I don't know. I need the video.
I think there's like video evidence, right?
It was probably AI.
Barkley go.
Yeah, I mean, it's an effective thing. We've seen other teams try it, most without effectiveness.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think that's it. Not that the Bills did the tush push, but like Josh Allen is an enormous man and he could not sneak for his life in the AFC Championship game. No. What bugs me about the tush push is like everybody's offsides. Everyone on both teams is offside.
Yeah.
Like the ball is the neutral zone and everyone's in it. And they're just like, well, we can't call it on everyone. So I know it reached the point of absurdity with what's his name on the football team that jumped over Washington jumped over the line 3 times in a row. So I don't know.
Was it Frankie Louvu?
Sure was. I don't know. It's going to be, I mean, I don't know, Doug. I guess I'm just preparing myself for the three-peat.
I have a question because I said this on the Christian Arcand program last night and he kind of made a good point back to me. I said, I don't think it would be good for the NFL if the Chiefs win. And I think that it creates a scenario kind of similar to what the NBA was like, let's say like 10 years ago, where you're just heading into every season being like, all right, well, I know what the result's going to be.
Cavs Warriors. Cavs Warriors.
Yeah. And then he said, well, do you think it was bad for the NFL when the Patriots were in their dynasty? And I was like, you got me there. But I don't think it was the same because like there was a 10-year break in between them winning Super Bowls and it wasn't a three-peat. Like there was other wins mixed in. And especially the second dynasty year or the second dynasty era where it was win, non-win, win, loss, win. So like they were beatable. But if you get to a point where the Chiefs just purely look unbeatable, then I don't know, like, and it's possible that I'm dumb and this is not the case, but like, do fans of other NFL franchises head into a season being like, well, we're not going to win anyway? I don't know.
I feel like this year, I feel you on that because you had everyone in the AFC being like, this is it. Like the Bills thought it was the year. The Ravens thought it was the Bengals going in thought it was the year. Then they lost to the Patriots in week 1, and that really screwed that up. But I think
it seems like all those teams were like all in this year. Like Bills fans were like, we are going to win this year. And then you don't. And Ravens fans were like, we're going to win this year. And then they don't. And I do think that maybe hope dies a little bit after a year like this.
Yeah, I mean, it does have to end at some point. I would have, if I had the privilege of speaking on the radio, I would have said to you, the difference is the Patriots were great villains. They were so hated that was good for business because the whole country was rooting against them. Now, granted, you could say the whole country's rooting against the Chiefs, and that's partially valid, but like Mahomes isn't hateable except for, when he flops or whatever, or fakes a call. And like, now Kelsey is obviously hated by like the right for dating Taylor Swift or whatever and having his vaccines. But
there is a wide swath of people who like the Chiefs because of Taylor Swift, because she's the most popular human being on earth. So
that helps. I think like nobody dislikes Andy Reid. His biggest, black mark is his son's misdoings, not his own. There's just they don't have the same, I don't know, even like when Tyreek Hill was there, you could be like, oh, that's a bad guy. He's not there.
Yeah.
So it's
Kareem Hunt's still there, but it is what it is.
For a second time, they went back and got him.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's no scandals.
Right.
Real, fake, or imagined. I can't wait till we do a Deflategate episode in a few weeks because we'll have late February talk. But there's none of that with the Chiefs. So it's not the same. It's just sort of like being sick of them.
Yeah.
And it's not it's not even just like the Yankees in the late 90s. Everyone, that's how they became the evil empire, was because they just were like the bad guys. The Patriots were the bad guys, and that's good for business. Like, is Star Wars a high grossing movie if Darth Vader's not in it?
Probably not. Yeah.
No. And now, like, I'm not a Star Wars aficionado. Whoever the bad guy is in episode 1, not as good as Darth Vader, because Darth Vader's like 6 years old in the first one. Thus, first movie, not as good as, well, the fourth movie.
Darth Maul, which semi-translates to bad Darth.
he was pretty cool, actually, with his double lightsaber. So
yeah, but he died in the first one. No spoilers. Sorry, spoiler alert. It's a
spoiler alert. I don't know. We're pissing movie fans off, but you get my point. Where a bad villain is good for business, and like that carried into the years where the Patriots were bad. They would get all these. They had 4 primetime games 2 years ago, and it was like, what are we doing? And it's because people were so used to just cheering to see them lose that it wasn't bad ratings wise to see them lose on Thanksgiving or lose on Christmas, but they did win. True. You know what I mean? Like they were set up for ratings even when the team wasn't good because of that lingering effect.
Yeah.
So anyways, I got the Chiefs winning, but maybe it'd be fun if they don't. I don't know.
It would be fun if they don't. And I shouldn't have a rooting interest. I don't really, but I'm a little sick of the Chiefs winning every year. So I think it'd be fun to mix someone else in there, even if it is a team that's won semi-recently. I have 2 quick points on the Super Bowl and the Chiefs, and then I want to talk about one other thing real quick. And we are running out of time a little bit, kind of. But first point, circling back to 2 weeks ago when everyone was talking about Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes, I just want to throw something out there. On Pro Football Reference, they do an adjusted passing metric, which like averages everything out to 100. So like if you're 100, your passer rating was average compared to your era that season. If it's above 100, it's above average. If it's below 100, you were below average. Patrick Mahomes' career passer rating plus is 115. Tom Brady's career passer rating plus is 115. So I think that does show you the era adjusted numbers. Like just equal out so well with these guys. And like maybe over the first 7 years of Brady's career, it was below 115, but like I don't even know because it was 148 in 2007. So that
Yeah, he led the league in touchdown passes his second year as a starter.
Right. In year one, it was below 100, but then it was 111, 105, 110, 113, 110, 17. No, I'm misreading that. It was 111 his first year. So 111, 110, 107, 115, 114, 109, 148. I'm not a mathematician. That probably averaged out to somewhere around 115.
It's almost like a disservice to do this to Patrick Mahomes and be like, do the Brady debate now. It just is. It's like if I were to make a case like Christian Gonzalez is better than Deion Sanders. It's like, right. What are you doing? Like, why are you doing that right now? Now, granted, Mahomes has obviously a lot longer than 2 years of experience, but it's the same principle of like, you don't have to do this right now. He's on a track that's incredible. Let him ride it.
Right. Yes. And I think it's died down a little bit, but I did think it was a little bit odd early on in the pre-Super Bowl stuff that, and maybe this was just on my timeline, maybe like Twitter just skewed things this way, but felt like Chiefs fans were like talking about the Patriots more than they were talking about the Eagles or the Super Bowl and like how they compare to the Patriots and if they're more annoying or less annoying and all these things. I was just like, guys, you got to enjoy what you got right now. Don't compare it to like the guys who were doing it 10 years ago, you know?
Did you see what Brady did, by the way? He put a video out on his YouTube.
I think so, yeah.
I haven't watched it. I saw a clip of the Nate Clemens hit, and he basically reacted to the biggest hits of his career. So I assume it's like Elvis Doomerville.
Right.
Which I don't know how he didn't break his wrist. You ever watch that one?
Yeah.
Brady's in there to pass, and the helmet goes right on the left wrist, and he somehow doesn't break a bone. Anyways, I didn't watch them all, but I believe all of the hits he looked at were non-penalties, which I think was very calculated by Brady's.
Yeah. True.
You know, like
no flags to be seen.
Oh, I didn't get any of these flags. And his commentary is obviously like, that's my fault. I didn't protect myself. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, he is right. He doesn't nationally get enough credit for being as tough of a player as he was, like playing a whole season with a broken rib and a broken finger, et cetera, et cetera. We just passed the anniversary of the hand injury, which Bill Belichick said was not open heart surgery. So I just thought that was interesting to come out Super Bowl week to be like, look at all these hits I took that didn't draw any flags.
By the way, I did the math. Over the first 7 years of his career, he averaged a 116.2 passer rating plus. So
better than
tiny incy bit better if you account for era.
I guess because like his 06 numbers might have dipped.
Yeah, like there were some years where, but there's some years where Patrick Mahomes where his passer rating, and like obviously we're looking at passer rating. It's not a perfect stat, but I think that does show you that his numbers early in his career might not look incredible on paper, but for their time they were better than they would look right now. My final point, you're gonna hate this point. We're gonna fight. This is gonna be a Pat's chat fight. It hasn't been announced yet. It's coming out tonight. The Hall of Fame. If Eli Manning gets in the Hall of Fame, I don't really care. I'm not going to think very strongly about it. I think that the people at this point, and you're probably one of them. I'm about to call you annoying. The people who are super anti Peyton Manning Hall of Fame and Eli Manning Hall of Fame have gotten to the point where they're like a little bit more annoying than Eli Manning even making the Hall of Fame. I understand that the numbers don't add up, but like, you win 2 Super Bowls against the Patriots, you're going to get into the Hall of
Fame. So Doug, I'm trying to find my story.
Oh no.
Past. So I'll just quote myself. So this is when he got benched a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I wrote, that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is what everyone else is talking about today, and that's the debate over whether or not Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer. That is a most foolish debate. Of course, Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer because, to your point, Doug, it's the Hall of Fame. Like, there's no standard. Like, is he a Hall of Fame player if he doesn't win both of those Super Bowls? No. Is he a Hall of Fame player if his name's not Manning? No. But guess what? Both of those things happened, and so he's going to get in the Hall of Fame. Probably not tonight, but he will eventually get in. I'd love to see you, but this computer sucks, so I'm stuck looking at my story from 5 years ago. But that's just the way it is. Like Joe Namath's in the Hall of Fame. You ever look at Joe Namath's numbers?
Yeah.
He threw more picks than touchdowns.
Terry Bradshaw's another one that people point to where the stats don't add up. And like I'm going to be a hypocrite here because I'm not saying that he deserves to based on his numbers. Like his career passer rating plus is 98, which means that throughout his career, like his entire career, he was a below average quarterback. But like, we're not talking about someone who was terrible and just happened to win 2 Super Bowls. He made 4 Pro Bowls. Like it's to act like he was an absolute nothing in his entire career outside of those 2 games. Like you're not making a strong enough point there. And like you said, if his name's not Manning, he's probably not making the Hall of Fame. If he doesn't want to beat the Patriots 2 times, he's probably not making the Hall of Fame. But those 2 things are true. He was the first overall pick. He was one of the biggest names in the game for his entire 17-year career. It just is what it is, 16-year career.
Yeah, I'm trying to back up my point here, and my computer's kind of failing me. But like Bob Greasy was another one because he led the Dolphins to an undefeated season. He led the NFL in a passing category twice in his career. Yeah. Touchdowns one season and completion percentage one season. In the Super Bowl wins, Bob Greasy had a total of 161 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. But he's in the Hall of Fame. So it's like it's a story as much as it is like it's less, even less than baseball, which has maybe loosened its standards a little bit. But baseball's still largely stat based. The NFL is story based. Like I made the case, like I think Vince Wilfork might make the Hall of Fame because like of the second, run of Patriots Super Bowls or whatever you want to call it, because I can see the 50 people in that room really sniffing their own farts and being like, if we put a D tackle in, it shows that we really watched the film. Like we really watched the game. Whereas, you think Terrell Owens is a Hall of Famer? Right. Okay, child, watch this. We'll make him wait for years while we put in a guard. Who got in? Like Alan Faneca got in over Terrell Owens, right? It's wild. Something like that. So Eli's going to get in. I doubt tonight. Like it'll take a while, I think. But
we'll see. I think it might happen tonight, but I don't know. I have no idea. And like one other people have compared, like, should Jim Plunkett be in the Hall of Fame because he won 2 Super Bowls? Jim Plunkett played 15 years and he started double-digit games 8 times. Like he was never a Pro Bowler. He was never an All-Pro. It's once again, like you're not making a strong enough argument for it if you're throwing someone who's incomparable to Eli Manning in the conversation. And it is what it is. I don't know. Ben Roethlisberger, he's gonna be a Hall of Famer. I think that's probably more deserved than Eli, right?
Yeah. He was a better player.
But
Rivers didn't win the Super Bowl. Better player than Eli. Didn't win the Super Bowl.
He was a better player. Like Rivers and like Matt Stafford, like those guys are tough,
Bledsoe Hall of Fame? No, just kidding.
No.
I think Eli Manning will make it and Phillip Rivers will not.
I know Phillip Rivers was an 8-time Pro Bowler. I think he might. Dan Fouts is in, right? So I know I know Fouts was better in his era than Phillip Rivers was, but like I think Rivers eventually makes it. Yeah. We're obviously way early on the Matthew Stafford conversation, but I didn't know that Matthew Stafford's only been a Pro Bowler twice. I know that Pro Bowl isn't, like I said, the end all be all to all these arguments, but like, wouldn't you have thought that he would make the Pro Bowl more than twice in his career?
And I'm guessing one was when he threw for 5,000 yards.
I
would hope so.
You are correct. No, you're incorrect.
He didn't make the Pro Bowl when he threw 5,000 yards.
He won Comeback Player of the Year, but was not a Pro Bowler.
Was that 2010?
It was 2011.
That year.
Pro Bowler in 2014 and in 2023.
How do you not make the Pro Bowl when you throw for 5,000 yards?
Let me see who did.
I'm guessing like Rodgers. Rodgers probably made it. I don't think Eli made it. I'm looking at NFC quarterbacks in 2011.
We can figure this out. NFC, Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Cam Newton. Wait, there's more. And Eli Manning.
Eli
Threw for 4,900 yards that year, so he was not far off from 5,000.
That year was idiotic, so fair enough.
And yeah, but Cam Newton made it as a rookie. He had 14 rushing touchdowns that year. Drew Brees, maybe it was a situation where like there was 3 guys named to the Pro Bowl, and then Eli couldn't play in it because he was in the Super Bowl. Stafford said no, and then Cam got in or something. I don't know what the situation was, but that's what I mean. If you aren't named to the initial team, then it is what it is.
Yeah, I think so. Like, there's contractual things. I remember because Mac Jones had something in his contract where, like, if he makes a Pro Bowl, X happens, but that didn't include being an injury replacement. So
the first 3 were Rodgers, Brees, and Manning. Manning didn't play in it, so Cam Newton was the alternate. So I'm a genius. That was exactly what happened. I'm very smart. But yeah, all right. Well, we probably thought this was gonna be like a 45-minute podcast, and we're at an hour and 11 minutes. So good job by us. We had to make up for lost time though, and we had to talk about Anchorman.
I did realize though, Doug, because I don't know about you if you hate yourself as much as I do, but I sometimes wonder like when anyone would listen to anything I say. But I figured it out. That's the good news. Yeah. And it's like if you listened to the radio or consumed any Boston sports product over the past couple weeks, like, oh, I understand why they might listen to us, because like if there's nothing to talk about, we're not going to do it. You know what I mean? We're not going to force it. Like some of the topics I saw discussed were like recycled takes in the Boston sports media, and then those being like talking points, and then like it's like sort of this like Inception style of content, and it's like, well, that's not necessary. So we found no reason to emergency podcast, so we took a little pause, and the result is good Anchorman talk.
Yep.
Tush push consideration.
Yep.
Hall of Fame debates. Like we did it all, and then we'll probably recap the Super Bowl Monday morning. So how about that?
Yeah, I think we should do a Super Bowl pod. Talk about the Super Bowl, and then we'll go from there because things pick up pretty quickly after that. But rate, subscribe, review, comment, do all those fun things, and we will talk to you guys after the Super Bowl. Goodbye.